Way back in December 2013, Steam announced a new operating system that might free us from Microsoft's grip so that we might enter gaming Nirvana. What we got was SteamOS, and it's kinda still in beta. Welcome back to Craft Computing, everyone. As always, I'm Jeff. If you own a gaming PC, you run Windows, or according to Steam's most recent hardware survey, 98.31% of you do. It is the platform that every AAA game is released on, and for every GPU out there, there's a matching driver. But not everything is perfect just because Windows is the most popular. First, the OS itself costs roughly $100. It's a sizable chunk of change for most people, especially budget-oriented gaming PC builds, like this one I put together for $500 last month. Game developers also lean heavily on Microsoft's DirectX. It is the API used most frequently in PC and Xbox game development, and is nearly the industry standard. That's not to say there aren't other APIs out there, such as OpenGL, Vulkan, or Mantle. But as Windows is the #1 operating system by a wide margin, that's what developers are using, and it further cements the relationship between Windows and gamers. Enter Gabe Newell and Valve. They proclaimed a vision for the future of gaming back in 2013. One that would be free from Microsoft's hold on consumers. One where you could build a PC from off-the-shelf components and download a free operating system where your entire library of purchased games would await you. Or you could purchase a Steam Box, a pre-built gaming PC with Linux pre-installed from your favorite retailer. In the early days of SteamOS, hardware compatibility was the biggest hurdle for the fledgling operating system, as Valve decided to abandon legacy BIOS boot mode, which was used by x86 operating systems for the past 3 decades, and instead opted for supporting only the newest variant, UEFI. In late 2013, only brand new boards supported the new boot standard, so there was no experimenting with SteamOS on your old Core 2 Duo machine. You had to be running the latest and greatest in modern hardware. Those who could run SteamOS saw performance relatively on par with Windows when paired with the same hardware and same settings. There weren't many games on the market which could easily be converted to run on Linux because, as I said earlier, most relied on DirectX. Valve even had to rework a few of their own games to run in OpenGL to get them ported over to Linux. Well, that's all fine and dandy, Jeff, but you said SteamOS exists today. What's it like? Well, I'm happy to say that since UEFI has come standard on pretty much every motherboard since the release of SteamOS, installation was a relative breeze. I was originally going to run this test on an MSI B350 motherboard with a Ryzen 5 2400G to make it more of a console comparison, but installation would complete and boot to a black screen. I'm guessing there isn't support for the onboard Vega 11 GPU yet, so I wound up installing this on my 8700K test bench with a 1050 Ti. Once the installer finished, I was greeted with a login screen. Entering my Steam ID and password took me to what looks like big picture mode from standard Steam install. As SteamOS is aimed at console replacement, I wanted to do as much navigation as possible on my Xbox 360 controller. Unfortunately, I kept getting lost in the interface and wound up using a keyboard and mouse most of the time. This was also a common complaint back when SteamOS was new, so I'm a little disappointed they haven't improved this interface yet. So cool, it boots and it runs, but what about games? Well, taking a look at my personal games library, we can see over 505 titles owned. There's a large number of AAA titles here too, spanning over a decade of PC gaming. Games like GTA 4 and 5, Fallout 3, New Vegas and 4, Borderlands 1 and 2, Dishonored, Hitman Absolution, Mass Effect, and a number of indie titles that picked up along the way, such as Alan Wake, Gunpoint, World of Goo, or Human Fall Flat. And over the past 4 years, there were a number of AAA crossover titles promised to be coming to SteamOS. Batman Arkham Knight, Gauntlet, Evolve, Project Cars, Street Fighter V, The Witcher 3, Total War Rome. None of these were ever actually released on SteamOS. And if we add one critical filter to my games library, displaying only those that are SteamOS compatible, we see the list shrink from 505 down to 127 titles. There are some surprising AAA games here, such as Borderlands 2, Mad Max, Shadow of Mordor, as well as nearly everything made by Valve, including CSGO and Team Fortress 2. But notice nearly none of the games that I listed previously are present here. If your biggest names and industry players aren't present, it makes it really hard to create a competitive ecosystem. If you're an esports player, those games are actually well represented on this list, with games like CSGO, Rocket League, Payday 2, Team Fortress 2, and more. But games like PUBG aren't even on this list, nor can you get Fortnite or Overwatch, as those aren't even available on Steam on the Windows side of things. And even if those games were available on Linux, if you're not fluent in the OS, installation of any software outside of Steam's friendly wrapper can be a chore for the average person. Now, I did spend a fair amount of time playing games inside of SteamOS, and the experience was unquestionably good. I installed the games, launched them, and the experience was seamless. Rocket League played just as well inside of SteamOS as it did on Windows, as did Borderlands 2, Human Fall Flat, CSGO, Gunpoint, and pretty much any other game that I tried. There was nothing inside of those games that told me I was not playing on a Windows PC. So, conclusion time. What is SteamOS today? SteamOS seems to be struggling for air, fighting a war that it seemingly can't win. Gamers don't get excited at the prospect of abandoning Windows in favor of a new, lower-cost alternative, not because SteamOS isn't better, but because it's not comfortable. Steam was attempting to entice the console crowd over to the PC side of the room, but it didn't offer any of the benefits of the PC gaming crowd. There's no modding support, there's no versatility of a PC as you really can't install other software easily, and the built-in web browser is a bit of a joke, especially if you're using a controller. Add to that, my personal games library is just 25% the size that it is on Windows, while managing to remove nearly every blockbuster title from it. I can start to see why this didn't take off in the years since. Now, I'm not personally ready to give up on a Windows-free gaming future, but SteamOS has a long way to go before it can be seen as a serious contender. Although if Microsoft keeps up its aggressive update policies, shoddy driver management, intrusive ads in the start menu and taskbar, and keeps stealing all of our data, well, there might just yet be a glimmer of hope for SteamOS, so long as it can flesh out a truly competitive ecosystem. Now, I'm assuming that 98.31% of you are gaming on Windows today, but would you move to another OS if it could bring a full games library and third-party application support? I know I totally would, but let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Make sure to like this video and subscribe, as I've got a number of great videos planned for the coming weeks, including 2 new Wish.com orders and a knockoff X58 motherboard review. You will not want to miss those. If you like the channel and want to financially support it, look me up on Patreon or check out the video description for my Amazon affiliate link. Every dollar made goes directly back into content for this channel. Make sure to catch my live show, Talking Heads, every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific time. It's a time for myself and a co-host to grab a few beers and get caught up on the world of tech, with some craft beer talk thrown in there for good measure. Thank you everyone for watching. I'm gonna go finish this beer, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.